Start recording. Stop recording button.
Hi guys, so I'm going to do a draw my life video for you guys. I know I did this before, but it was extremely long. It was over an hour, and I was not going to put that up because a lot of you guys wouldn't watch that, and I don't blame you. So I'm going to just jump right into this, and certain things maybe I'll go more into depth on in other videos, which that gives me ideas, but I will go into detail, and I'm just going to go over the highlights of this, and like I said, I will go into detail about certain things, and I'll let you know as I go along. So I'm just going to jump right into this, so this video is not too long. Okay, so first things first, seeing as I can't draw, I'm just going to talk. I'm just calling it a draw my life because that's typically what it's called. So it all started on January 22nd of 1992. I was born in 12:22 a.m. on January 22nd. I was almost born on the 21st. My birthday was almost on the 21st, which is funny, but yeah, it's actually funny. I was born on 12/22 and my birthday's on 1/22. It'd be even funnier if I was born on 1/22, but anyway, so I was born blind. As you guys know, I'm blind. I was born without eyes. My condition is called anophthalmia, and the prefix "an" means without. So I had basically what you saw was just little sockets, this little eye bones. So if you stuck your finger in there, you would just see little sockets. So I didn't have the eyeball. I didn't have like any of the nerves to see. I didn't have the retina, the lens. I didn't have the optic nerve. All of that stuff I don't have. So basically, I had to get implants. Now, I had two different kinds of implants. One I still have to this day, but the first set I had were just ones that you pop them in. You pop them in and out. I have a funny story about that, but I'll see if I'll tell you guys that. But you pop them in and out, and they were pointy on one end, and the pointy part would go face down because it would look ugly for that part to face up because that's the part that you saw. So the problem with them is they would constantly spin around. They would turn around. My parents were constantly telling me to fix my eye. I got tired of hearing that after a while, but sometimes they would even do it for me. I mean, it was kind of like a second nature, the fact that it was always turning around. So I wouldn't have to fix it. Now, I have a doctor who makes fake eyes, and I would have to go to her every 6 months, and she was an ocularist. That's what they're called, an ocularist. So she would build up on the eyes, she would make new ones, she would polish them every 6 months, and as my eyes grew, I needed new ones. So let's see. So I had a pretty good childhood, I must say. My dad was living with us until I was 6, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So I had a pretty good childhood. I went to like a lot of different preschools. I even went to school as a baby. It was a school for the blind. It was early intervention, and I even had like a teacher come to my house to work with me when I was a baby. I don't remember any of this stuff, obviously, but I was told about it. So I started school I was pretty much in school since I was like 7 months old. But it was basically school with other babies and little kids. And you could learn basic things like how to eat, how to use a little cane, things like that. So you obviously did not get A's and B's, and you didn't get grades, but you didn't have actual work to do, but it was just, early intervention. There was no homework or anything like that. So I did that, and then I don't even remember how many different preschools I went to. I went to one school, one called Magic Years. When I went to another school, I think I was in like 3 different preschools. I don't even remember at this point, but yeah. So they wanted me to be in a handicap preschool, but we fought that. So I was in preschool, and then in 1997, the fall of 1997, I started kindergarten, and that was going well. And then in first grade, September I started first grade, but in October of 1998, I had flown to Texas because I had eye surgery. And basically, what I was having done was I was having, the implants I was telling you guys about, I was having them removed. And what I was having was an implant, and it was an actual implant that was sewn under the skin, and it was sewn to the back of my neck. And it had a prosthetic that looked like a shell, and they were acrylic. So the prosthetic sat on top of the implant to protect it from germs and stuff. So I was having that done, and we had to go to Texas because my ocularist knew of a good doctor that did it, and she wanted me to go to him. So we flew to Texas. So I missed school to do it, and I had to wear bandages, and I didn't really like that very much, but I had to. It had to be done so that germs wouldn't get in there for the first few weeks. And yeah, I did not like it. They were falling apart. I had to change the bandages several times a day. So yeah. So then let's see. I was still in first grade, and my parents got divorced. Now let's see. I remember I was at the babysitter's house because my mother was working, and she picked us up saying we were going to stay at my great aunt's house overnight. And it was a school night. So she said, we're going to go stay there, do something different. And I didn't know why. She just said we were going to do something different. And what child doesn't want to do something different? And so I actually found out later that was the night that my dad was being taken out of the house by the police. And they were, and my mother didn't want it to upset us. So, because for the longest time we were asking her what happened that night, and she didn't want to tell us. She said she didn't want to get into it. And then when we got a little older, she told us. So they got divorced, and visitation pretty much started right away. First we had to see my dad at a place because it had to be supervised because they thought he was violent. So we saw him at a place, and it was not very long at all. I think it was only for a month or two. And it was a jail because it was the jail was above us, and where we visited him was a holding place. So everything we brought with us had to go through a metal detector. Toys, candy, any snacks we brought. And I used to look forward to it because my brother and I would get presents, and what child does not like presents? So I looked forward to it, but it was not very long because we had, my mother had a restraining order on him, but she got it taken away, so we didn't have to visit him at that place for very long, which was good. Because, basically what wound up happening was after my dad moved out, he moved back home. So we would go to my grandparents' house. So he'd pick us up, take us home. And the way it worked was every third week of every week, the weekend of the month, every Saturday, he would pick us up. We'd go there for the day. And then every third weekend of the month, we would stay overnight with him. And sometimes he would pick us up Friday nights and bring us home Sunday. So we'd have all day Saturday with him. And he used to take us out to dinner on Wednesday nights because he used to work right in my town. And I don't want to say what town because I don't know if I'm gonna have any creepers watching this. But he worked right in my town, and sometimes we wouldn't even go to my grandparents because it was a really long drive. It was almost 2 hours. So we would just go. We would just go to his office. So yeah. So basically, sometimes we would just do that. We would he took us out to dinner when he was working in the area, and when I went to that place, we would go every Saturday and Sunday. So this went on for about a couple years. So let's see. I was in first grade, and my dad's mother, my grandmother, passed away. She was really sick, and nobody really knew. She didn't tell anybody until it was really late because I think she didn't want anybody to know she was suffering. So she was she had pancreatic cancer, and she smoked, and basically on her last Christmas, she gave everybody a lot of money, a lot of clothes, because inside she knew, but she did not tell anybody. So, on April 24th, 1999, she passed away. My grandfather, let's see, so my mother told us, because my aunt had called her, it was very late at night, and next morning we were sitting at the breakfast table, and my mother told us, she said, Grandmom's in heaven, and because you have to explain it like in a way, with little kids, you have to explain it in a way where they understand. And she said, that we wouldn't be seeing my dad, and I was always looking forward to seeing him, because I looked forward to it. So that was hard. And let's see, the end of first grade, my mother went back to school to get another job. She was working with blind people. She was a mobility instructor. She went back to school to do that, so to get her master's. So we had to leave school early. So, we had to finish school early. So we were done with school in the beginning of June, I think. And then we went back in September. So we basically, what we did was we stayed with my aunt for a week. So Monday to Friday we would stay there, and then we would come home on the weekends, and then Saturday I'd go to my dad, and Sunday we'd go back there. And if it was a sleepover weekend with my dad, we would go back home. Well, we just have to go right to my aunt's when we got back from being with my dad, and it was hard, but we got through it. Let's see. So she moved, and she had to move, and she had to be out of her house because, it wasn't her house anymore, and her new house wasn't ready yet, so she was basically living all over. So they actually stayed with us for a good portion of the summer. And I was in second grade, and we literally had 7 babysitters. We had a few neighbors taking care of us. We had this one girl that lived in our neighborhood who used to watch us. My dad helped out. My grandparents, they basically stayed with us. It was a lot. So let's see. So that summer, my mother started working at a blind camp that I actually went to when I was older, called Drew University. So she started working there, and so that was hard, because we basically did not see her for that whole year. So I was in the 3rd grade. I was still 8, and let's see, in the summer of 2nd grade, I actually met this guy, Alex, and I'll go into more detail about him maybe in another video, but I don't want this to be too long, so I'll talk about that in a separate video. So I'm just doing the highlights right now. So in 3rd grade, so on September 7th of 2000 was when she started her full-time job as a mobility instructor. And everything was going good. I couldn't complain. Everything was great. Then, let's see. The end of 3rd grade, I think it was the end of 3rd grade, something like that. Or over the summer or in 4th grade. I can't remember, but we started seeing my dad every other weekend. So we would stay overnight, and we would just go there every other weekend. And then, let's see, so I was in, I'm trying to think. If I'm forgetting anything, let's see, I talked about I feel like there is something I'm forgetting, but I can't think of it right now, but if I am, I'll backtrack. So let's see, so in the 4th grade, everything was great. 5th grade, so in middle school, now we're going to fast forward to middle school. I started middle school in September of 2003, and I met a friend, and they had a little 6th grade social for like the 6th graders, and I was actually, so I went, and I was standing around, and this girl comes up to me. She was in my homeroom, and she introduced herself. We were talking, we were dancing, and she said, "Oh, do you know my name?" And I said, "No." And I heard her voice. I mean, she sounded familiar, but I didn't know her name. And her name is, and I will say her real name because I don't know what it is with people not saying like people's real names when they talk about people. But this is her real name. I'm not making it up. Her name is Kelsey. So she said, "Oh, my name is Kelsey." And we have quite a few memories together. I'm not going to go into it in this video. Maybe I'll do a separate video on it because I don't want this video to be really long. So I will do a separate video on that when I can. Maybe in the distant future. Maybe one of these topics will be story time tomorrow. I don't know. So I have, we were really good. I mean, she was great. She was a good friend. She would help me when my aide wasn't in. And then I noticed when we entered the 7th grade, things between us started to go downhill. I noticed she wasn't coming around as much. I remember one time I had a sleepover. I had a birthday party, and she told me that her grandmother was really sick, and she lied to me because she didn't want to stay at the party. Like, she told me that, but it wasn't true. She just was trying to like get out of staying at the party. But like I said, I'm going to go into a whole video on us. I'm going to do a separate video on that so it isn't too long. So, like I said, we started to drift apart, and things just have not been the same between us. Now we just like totally don't talk. And it's a shame because when we met, we were really good friends. So, let's see. So I was in 7th grade, and I lost 2 grandparents in 1 week. So my grandfather, to this day, is my only grandparent. So my grandmother had cancer, and she was in her 60s, and she smoked, and she passed away when I was in 7th grade. I remember my dad was with us, and he told us, and we were really upset. So we went to her wake, her funeral, the same day, like we were at the wake, and people were telling us like, "Oh, I'm sorry about your grandfather." We didn't know what they were talking about because we didn't know. And my dad came to pay their respects. So when we got there, actually my mother's friend drove us because she was already there, and we couldn't go with her because we were in school, so we couldn't be there with her. So he drove us to the wake, and he stayed as well. But my dad, when we got there, he met us in the parking lot, and he took us inside, and we greeted everybody, of course. Then he took us into a room, and he told us that my grandfather had also passed. So my grandmother passed on October 17th of 2004, and my grandfather passed on October 19th. And it was actually the 18th, but he wasn't found. They didn't find him dead until the 19th, so that's why we say it's the 19th. So, let's see, everything went really well after that. I mean, we dealt with that really well. And then, let's see, I'm going to fast forward to high school. So, in September of 2006, I started high school, and I basically, high school, I guess, went well. I mean, middle school and high school, my grades were not as good as they can be. And I will admit, I was the kind of kid, I was just lazy. I didn't push myself. I never really tried. And I was the kind of kid, I was like, oh, I'm just going to slack off. And because a lot of kids, in high school, middle school, you could slack off and still pass. So I was one of those kids. And, I not every time, I didn't fail every time, but I just did not try as hard as I could have. So other than that, high school, I guess, went well. I mean, I didn't really have a group of friends in high school because I was always sheltered. I was always with adults, aides, but other than that, everything went really well. Now, let's see. I went to junior prom. That was a great night, and I actually went with that boy Alex, and I will do a separate video on that because I just don't want this to be really long. So I will do separate videos on all these topics saying. Even the story with my implants, because I actually have a funny story about that. And I will definitely talk about all of that, and the story about what Texas, and how I found out what I was getting, and like how I actually saw the implant. So I will tell you guys separate stories about these things. So let's see. Anyway, so junior prom was great. We had a great night. I actually had a couple of boyfriends because I was dating Alex, but it wasn't real love. It was puppy love. We started dating when I was 8, and but again, it wasn't real love. It was just like a crush, puppy love kind of thing. Our parents would separate us when they saw us kissing because they said we were too young, which was totally understandable. And as I got older, I was like, in our heads, we were getting married and gonna have a baby together, but that's just not optimal. It just isn't, because of the way he is. So I was like really, so we were like in our heads, we're getting married, having kids and all that. So we had a fight, and that was actually the airplane incident, which I did a story on, and we were on the outs for a little bit. We were still talking as friends, but we weren't dating. So I had a few other boyfriends. I was dating this guy Vincent, and I basically was still dating him when Alex and I got back together, and I was cheating on Vincent. I know that wasn't right, but I did, because kids, 17-year-olds do stupid things, and even with Vincent, it wasn't a real relationship. I basically asked him, and the guy is supposed to ask the girl. So I basically asked him, and when he said yes, I was screaming. And all my friends and I were all excited. So, but the thing is, I found out later on he did not really love me. He just felt bad for me. And I kind of knew that he didn't really want anything to do with me because I went to camp. And he was just not, like, he never, like, Drew. I told you guys about that. My mother worked there several years ago. But he wasn't coming around. I would try to text him and ask him to hang out. And he just didn't answer me. He was giving me the cold shoulder. And I knew, like, okay, there's something going on. I mean, he's not treating me the way he should. He wasn't coming around. He never hung out with me. And he actually cheated on me because I went to Alex's senior prom, and he said something to me. He's like, oh, I heard you went to Alex's senior prom. I was like, oh, I just went as friends, nothing. And he's like, oh, okay, you just went as friends. And he didn't really believe me. And then the next day he was like dating another girl. And it was just a mess. And I wasn't upset because I knew, like, for one, I knew I shouldn't have been cheating on him for so long. And also because I know, like, it wasn't a real relationship. It was just puppy love. So I was not in love with him. I was nowhere near in love with him. And I knew it wasn't anything serious or anything like that. And it never would be. It never would have been. So I was a little disappointed. I was like, I got over it. Because he actually did it twice. Because when I went the first year to this camp, he took another girl to the prom. So basically, yeah, I was upset. But I was not, like, depressed. I wasn't, like, laying around all the time. I mean, it wasn't like that, no. Because, like I said, I knew it wasn't anything. And it was my mistake. Like, I should not have done that. And, like, now, if I were to date someone, I would not do that. Because I know, like, because I'm not going to just get into, like, puppy love anymore. Any relationships now are going to be real relationships. And I'm not going to do that. And I'm sure kids, 16, 17-year-old girls do stupid things like that all the time. So, like, I mean, kids break up because, I don't know, they don't want kids. Like, I don't know, because I had a friend whose boyfriend broke up with her because she doesn't want kids. I'm like, that's something 10-year-olds do. So kids do stupid things. And basically, so let's see. And then I was dating this other guy who messed things up between Alex and I basically broke up with him over texting. His name was Darius, and I didn't like him because he basically just came in between my relationship with Alex, and he wouldn't leave me alone for like the longest time, and he just was annoying me. Like, he left me alone for like 2 months after I broke up with him over texting. I know that's really like cold-hearted, but I didn't want to call him. I didn't want anything to do with him. And like 2 months later, he texted me, tried to get me into a relationship again, and I was like, no. I ignored him. I didn't even talk to him. I just ignored him as if he wasn't even there. So, let's see. So I basically, to sum things up. So in high school, I remember the summer of 2007, I went to the Colorado Center for the Blind. It was the summer of my freshman year. They actually let me leave school early and take my finals early. And I actually fell apart that whole year. I failed 3 out of 4 academic classes. I was getting into a lot of trouble with the administration. I was suspended once. I had detention once. I wasn't doing all my assignments. I basically just shut down completely. Once I found out about this Colorado center I was going to, I just shut down. I wasn't really doing any schoolwork. I mean, it was just bad. I made big mistakes. And so then the summers of 2008 and 2009, I went to Drew University, which was a college prep program that I was telling you guys about. I went for 3.5 weeks. And then I went to camps. Now, the previous summers, I went to summer camp when my mother was working. I went to before and after care when I was in school. When we were sick, she would take off. And as far as summers, we went to summer camp. We went to this one camp called KinderCare, which was awful. And then we went to a different camp, which was a lot better. I mean, KinderCare, you couldn't bring money to go on trips. You could not bring your own lunch. It was just so many rules. And this other camp, it was the exact opposite. You were able to bring money for trips. You were able to bring your own lunch. It was just totally different. So we went to camp. Then I went to camps. I went to 2 camps. One camp called Diller, which was a vacation camp. I actually stopped going in 2008 because I was too old, because you can only go until you're 16. And then I went to Camp Marcella, which was, now these were both blind camps, and they were basically, you basically go camping, you do more like camp things. Like Diller, you could bring money, you can go on vacation, it's a vacation kind of camp. You go to the beach, you go to the lake, you go to the park, and then Camp Marcella was more like classes. So it was, you go camping, we went on boat rides, we did arts and crafts, we did nature. In nature, we did a whole bunch of different things. We went swimming, we had gym. In gym, we basically just played different sports. So we did a lot of different things, and we had life skills. I mean, we did a whole bunch of different things. I mean, it's endless amounts of activities we did there. So the Marcella was 1 week. It was 2 weeks. Diller was 1 week. So I did that over the summer until I was 16, and then Marcella I actually stopped going to when I was like 14. So I went to Colorado. I went to camps. My dad took us for a week. We would go with my dad for a week. And then one summer he actually stayed with us. And and then I had I had my grandparents would take us for a week. So basically my summers as a kid, that's how they were. And then as I got older, we were just home during the day when my mother was at work. So basically, let's see. And then the last week of the summer, we would go to all 3 of us, me, my mother, and my brother, would go to my grandparents' house. And we would stay there for a week, like the week right before Labor Day weekend. And then, fast forwarding to, high school. I graduated high school on June 24th of 2010. I had a graduation party, and then that summer was basically went on vacation. I was getting ready for school. In that fall, September 8th of 2010, I started college at Brookdale. I got I graduated in the summer of 2014 with an associate's in education, and I was supposed to graduate in 2013, but I had to retake a couple of classes, and I plan to do a separate video on that. So, all these separate videos, stay tuned for, because I will go into more detail. So, let's see. So then, I went to college, and I graduated Brookdale in the summer of 2014. Now, in 2013, my mother actually got remarried. She met a guy, and we actually moved into his place, all of us. Me, my mother, my brother. We packed up our stuff, we moved into their place, and it did not work out for a lot of reasons, which I will explain in another video. But it did not work out. There was a lot of tension, mainly between me and his daughters, also known as my stepsisters. So yeah, in 2013, we moved out of our house and in with them. Now we're back in our house. So yeah. So I basically, after I finished Brookdale in 2013, because 2013, in December 2013 was my last actual semester at Brookdale. I took a year off of school because I went to a training center. So then in the summer, I had to retake a couple classes because I had break. I had 7 weeks off. So I took summer classes. The classes that I had to retake, I took them online, and then I passed. So I did, so I got my associates in education, and I went back to the center in August. Let's see, so from the middle of December of 2013 until the end of March 2014, I was basically home not doing anything. So I remember, so then I started my training center in March 31st of 2014. I was done for the summer. I was on break in June because they had another program, a high school program, so we had to go home for 7 weeks. And then in August, I started back there, and I was there for 4 more weeks. I had to finish out my training, and then I had to take another 4 weeks off because you do work experience when you're done. It's 4 weeks of work experience, and I know they were going to put me at Best Buy, but they were like, no, Best Buy's not the right place for you, and they were trying to find somewhere else to put me, and they put me at an office job. So for 4 weeks, I was just home. I had another 4-week break. So I wound up graduating from, let's see. So I started up in October, and I wound up graduating from the center on November 7th of 2014. I graduated from the center. Now, let's see. In 2010, I met a friend. He was my mother's client, and we actually first started following each other on Facebook, and we just got closer. We were talking on the phone. We're still friends to this day, but he came for my graduation, and I'm going to do another separate video on our friendship. Maybe not every single little detail, but I'll go more in depth to explain. And he was there, and then after that, so from the middle of November until the beginning of January, again, I was free. So, the day after Christmas of 2014, we actually unexpectedly moved out of my stepfather's house. Basically, there was a lot of tension, and it was just, he was loud, he was calling me names, and basically my stepsister tattled on me for eating chocolate that was a gift, and I didn't know it was a gift for someone, and it was an accident. I made a mistake. I apologized to everybody for doing it. I'm sorry, and it was a mess because they wanted me to give them money for it, and they got into an argument about that, and they would argue about things like, oh, if I spilled soda or something. It was a mess. So we moved out, and we were living with friends for a few days, and then we got a house down the shore for 6 months. So we actually, on January 5th of 2015, I attended school. I started school at Berkeley College, and I'm going there to this day. So I had to change my major to business administration because they don't have education there. So I got 44 credits from Brookdale, and I had 60. So I guess that's pretty good. So we were living down the shore for 6 months, and it was a lot. It was really stressful for me. I mean, it was a lot of turmoil, a lot of stress, because I had a 2-hour plus commute to and from school every day, and there were days where I was literally on the bus more than I was in school. So if I was out of the house for 5 hours, 3 of those hours were spent on the bus. It was really stressful. So in June of 2015, we moved back into my townhouse. Now, I know, okay, so then I actually was that last time, because Berkeley is in quarters, so last quarter before we moved back here, I did not do so well. I had, basically because of all the stress, and so I had to retake a class. So I did that in the fall. I took the summer off because I went on vacation, and I was moving. I wasn't sure how long moving was going to be. So I took the summer off, and I started again in September of 2015. And I took my algebra class over again. And I'm going to do a separate video on my relationship with my dad. But basically, in a nutshell, he doesn't really call me as much as he's not as interactive with me as he used to be. And he has not, whenever he's in town, he'll call my brother and not me. And it bothers me. So I wrote him off. But like I said, I'm going to do a separate video on that. So stay tuned for that. Because, so let's see. That's about it. So I'm told, like I said, I'm going to do certain topics that I didn't really explain in detail. So stay tuned for separate videos. Maybe I'll pick one for tomorrow's story time video. And I will, because remember, story time days are also talk days to sit down, talk about whatever. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for that, because not that I don't want to go into detail, I just do not want this video to be really long. So I hope you guys can understand, and if you have any other questions about anything, please don't say anything negative or start rumors. Just ask, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I will respond. So like I said, if you have any questions, just ask. Alright, so I'm gonna go, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Alright, bye guys.